Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. I am Insha Afzal, working as vocational trainer at High School Raithan. My trade is agriculture, which is for class ninth, that is level 1, and my vocational training partner is Bable. I am here to deliver a lecture on the topic fertilizers used in crop production. Before starting my lecture, I would like to thank Shri Arun Manhas, SPD Samagra, our BAble team, Mr. Muzzafer Sheikh, our cluster head, Mr. Sameer Hussain, our state coordinator, and last but not the least, Mr. Muhammad Ramzan Ganai, headmaster High School Raithan, for their outstanding support and everlasting guidance in discharging my duties in these tough times. Firstly, we will see what is a fertilizer. Basically, fertilizer, it is any material of natural or synthetic origin which is applied to the soils or to the plant tissues, for example, leaves, to supply one or more plant nutrients which are essential for the growth of plants. The main three nutrients which are required by the plants, they are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Now coming to the types of fertilizers. There are various types of fertilizers. Grossly, we can divide them into two categories. First is the organic fertilizers and second is the inorganic fertilizers. Organic fertilizers are those fertilizers which are derived from living things like plants or animals. And inorganic fertilizers, they comprise of synthetic agents, or they are those fertilizers which are prepared artificially. Now, what are the different types of organic fertilizers? There are broadly four types of organic fertilizers. First is the peat, second animal waste, third plant waste, and fourth sewage sludge. Now what is peat? Peat, it is a blackish substance which is basically an accumulation of partially decayed vegetation or organic matter. It does not provide any nutrition to the soil, but it helps in aerating the soil and absorbing water. Now, animal wastes. Animal wastes, they are the products which are obtained after the slaughter of the animal. For example, its blood, bones, hooves, horns. And then is plant waste. Plant wastes are the leftover material of plants. Then is the sewage sludge. Sewage sludge is a solid, semi-solid or liquid residue which is obtained after the treatment of domestic or industrial sewage. Now, manure. What is this manure? This manure, it is an organic fertilizer. It is itself an organic matter which is derived from the decomposition of plant material or animal feces. Now, what does this manure do? This manure, it adds organic matter and nutrients such as nitrogen to the soil. This nitrogen, it is trapped by the bacteria present in the soil, which from which then this nitrogen is available to the plants. This manure, it is high in essential elements and it also adds humus to the soil. Now what is humus? Humus is an organic component of soil. It is formed by the decomposition of leaves and other plant material by soil microorganisms. Now coming to the types of manure. There are basically three types of manure. First is the animal manure, second is the human manure, and third is the green manure. As you can see in the pictures, on the left hand side it is the animal manure and on the right hand side it is green manure crop. Basically animal manure, it is the feces of animals. It is formed from the feces of the animals. Likewise human manure, it is formed from the feces of humans. And green manure, they are basically certain types of crops which are used as manure. Now what is animal manure? Animal manure, as I told you, it consists of feces of animals. There are two common forms of animal manure. First is the farmyard manure, second is the farm slurry or liquid manure. Now farmyard manure, it contains plant material, for example straw, which is used as a bedding material for animals. And this straw, it has absorbed the feces and urine of animals. Now farm slurry. Farm slurry is produced where instead of straw, Concrete or slates are used as bedding material. Now the manure from different animals, it has got different qualities and it requires different application rates when it is used as a fertilizer. For example, sheep manure, it is high in nitrogen and potash. Pig manure, it is low in both nitrogen and potash. And chicken litter, which is obtained from poultry birds, it is high in concentrated nitrogen and phosphate. As you can see the table, it shows names of various manures and their composition. Now coming to the human manure. Human manure is not used widely. Now green manure. Now what is green manure? Green manures, they are basically crops which are grown for the explicit purpose of ploughing them so that we can increase the fertility of the soil, and also they help in incorporating the nutrients and organic matter into the soil. Now example of green manure are leguminous plants, for example clover, because these clovers, they are able to fix the atmospheric nitrogen using Rhizobia bacteria in specialized nodes in their root structure. Now other examples of green manure crops are alfalfa, cowpea, fenugreek, millet, mustard, etc. Now coming to the compost. Now what is compost? Compost is an organic matter that has been decomposed and recycled as a fertilizer for soil amendment. Compost is a key ingredient in organic farming. It is very rich in nutrients. It is used in gardens, in landscaping, in horticulture, and in agriculture. Compost itself is very beneficial for the land and in many ways. It acts as a soil conditioner, a fertilizer, it adds humus to the soil and also acts as natural pesticide for the soil. The compost, which is prepared by the earthworms, is known as vermicompost. Now there are two ways or two methods of preparing this compost. One is the simple method in which we keep a heap of wet organic matter known as green waste, which includes leaves, food wastes, for weeks or months together. And the materials present in this heap are broken down into humus. The other is the modern method in which we take measured inputs of water, air, carbon and nitrogen rich material. Then we go for shredding all this plant matter, adding water, giving proper aeration and through regular turning. Earthworms, bacteria and fungi break up this material and convert it into ammonium, which is used by plants. When this ammonium is not used by plants, it is converted by bacteria through a process of nitrification into nitrates. Now coming to inorganic fertilizers. What are inorganic fertilizers? In inorganic fertilizers, the nutrients, they are immediately available to the plant. They need not to be broken down. And the plants, they get exact amount of nutrients which they require. These inorganic fertilizers, they are very cheap to use, but they require regular application and lots of watering. Now as a consumer, one should know how to read a bag of inorganic fertilizer. Generally, we see there are 3 numbers on the bag, as you can see in this picture on the right hand side. The numbers, they refer to the amount of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium in the fertilizer. For example, if a bag has 10, 10, 10 written on it, it means there is 10% nitrogen, 10% phosphorus and 10% potassium in the fertilizer. Now coming to types of inorganic fertilizers. There are 3 types of inorganic fertilizers: nitrogen fertilizers, potassium fertilizers and phosphate fertilizers. First we will discuss nitrogen fertilizers. All these nitrogen fertilizers, they are made from ammonia. And examples of nitrogen fertilizers include urea and anhydrous ammonium nitrate. You can see in the picture Here on the left hand side, it is a bag of urea which contains 46% nitrogen, and on the right hand side, you can see the urea which is contained in this bag. Now coming to phosphate fertilizers. Phosphate fertilizers, they are obtained by extraction from minerals which contain the anion phosphate. Most popular phosphate-containing minerals are collectively referred to as phosphate rock. The main minerals present are fluorapatite and hydroxyapatite. These minerals, they are converted to water-soluble phosphate salt by treatment with sulfuric or phosphoric acid. Now potassium fertilizer. Potassium fertilizers, or you can say potash, it is a mixture of potassium minerals which are used to make potassium fertilizers. Now, if we have to produce this nutrient from the ore, it involves certain purification steps. For example, we have to remove sodium chloride, or which is known as common salt, first. Sometimes potash, it is referred to as K2O. Now, there are certain examples of potash fertilizers, for example, potassium chloride, potassium sulfate, potassium carbonate, or potassium nitrate. Till now, we discussed about organic and inorganic fertilizers, which are the main types of fertilizers. Now, apart from organic and inorganic fertilizers, there are various other types of fertilizers. For example, we have straight fertilizers. They are those fertilizers which supply only one primary plant nutrient, either nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. Examples of straight fertilizers are urea, ammonium sulfate, potassium chloride, or potassium sulfate. Now, mixed fertilizers. Mixed fertilizers, they are mixtures of straight fertilizers. They contain 2 or 3 primary plant nutrients. And how are they prepared? They are made by thoroughly mixing the ingredients, either mechanically or manually. Now, examples of mixed fertilizers are monoammonium phosphate and diammonium phosphate. Coming to the compound fertilizers, they contain nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And they are also produced like mixed fertilizers by mixing the straight fertilizers. In some cases, what happens, there occurs certain chemical reactions between 2 or more components of these compound fertilizers. For example, monoammonium and diammonium phosphate, they provide plants with both nitrogen and phosphorus. And they are produced by neutralizing the phosphoric acid from phosphate rock in the ammonia. Now coming to complex fertilizers. Complex fertilizers, they are also compound fertilizers, which are prepared by mixing 2 or more macronutrient type fertilizers. But these complex fertilizers, they may further be blended with elements that are less common plant nutrients, which are known as secondary or trace nutrients, for example, sulfur, calcium, magnesium. And these compound fertilizers, they can then be packaged and distributed in both liquid or granular form. A numbering system which usually defines the percentage of only 3 essential plant nutrients. For example, if a bag of fertilizer has 20-20-10 written on it, it means it contains 20% nitrogen, 20% phosphorus, and 10% potassium in it. The other secondary nutrients or trace elements, they are just typically listed. Now, what are complete fertilizers? Complete fertilizer, as I have already told you that any bag of fertilizer, it has an acronym or a name written on it, which indicates the amount of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium contained in the fertilizer. Now, if there is any bag of fertilizer which has just 020 written on it, it means it only indicates the amount of phosphorus contained in the fertilizer, neither nitrogen nor potassium. Now, what are balanced fertilizers? Balanced fertilizers are those fertilizers which contain equal amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, potash or potassium in them. Now, slow release fertilizers. Slow release fertilizers, they have a slower release rate of the nutrient as compared to the conventional water-soluble fertilizers and controlled release fertilizers. Their rate, pattern, and duration of release is not well controlled because the release depends on the microbial activity, which is driven by the soil moisture and the temperature conditions. Sometimes nutrients present in these fertilizers, they may be released quickly when there is excessive moisture or when the temperature is high. Now this table shows various fertilizers and the amount of nitrogen, phosphorus and potash contained in them. Now coming to the advantages and disadvantages of these fertilizers. Now what are the advantages of these chemical fertilizers? These chemical fertilizers, they cost much less than the organic fertilizers. And also they can be made at a much faster rate than the natural or the organic fertilizers, which take a longer time to decompose. And as compared to the natural fertilizers, they contain much more NPK, that is nitrogen, phosphorus and potash content, around 20 to 60%, whereas natural fertilizers, they contain only a maximum of 14% NPK. And if a fertilizer is supplied according to the requirement of the soil, then it will not harm, but it will result in a healthy plant. Now the disadvantages. Disadvantages of these fertilizers are that they require more fossil fuels to produce, and they create more greenhouse gases during production. They can also have negative effects on the environment when they tend to run off into the water sources. And other than nitrogen, phosphorus and potash, these fertilizers, they also contain certain inert fillers, which are unnecessary chemicals, and they get a lot of water out of the soil and also cause water pollution. Now coming to biofertilizer. A biofertilizer, it is a substance which contains living microorganisms. And when these biofertilizers, they are applied to the seed or plants or soil, they colonize the rhizosphere. Rhizosphere is the interior of the plant. And they promote growth by increasing the supply or availability of primary nutrients. Now biofertilizers, they add nutrients through natural processes like nitrogen fixation, solubilization of phosphorus, and they stimulate plant growth through synthesis of growth promoting substances. Now there are various examples of biofertilizers like Rhizobium, like mycorrhiza, like azotobacter, like blue-green algae. Now here are the pictures of various biofertilizers and the actions they do. Like Rhizobium, azotobacter, azospirillum, they help in fixation of atmospheric nitrogen. Whereas Pseudomonas and mycorrhiza, they either solubilize or fix the phosphorus. Now there are certain advantages and disadvantages of these biofertilizers. Coming to the advantages, these biofertilizers, they reduce dependence on the chemical fertilizers. They are very cheap, they are easy to use, they restore the normal fertility of the soil, they add valuable nutrients to the soil. They take nitrogen from the atmosphere and phosphates from the soil, and they convert them into the forms that the plants can utilize. Even some species of biofertilizers, they produce natural pesticides. They also help in improvement in soil texture, and they help plants to grow well during periods of drought as well. They help plants to develop stronger root systems and help them to grow better. They reduce the effects of harmful organisms in the soil, like fungi and nematodes. Now coming to the limitations. These biofertilizers, they require special care for long-term storage because they are alive. Also, they complement other fertilizers, but they cannot totally replace them. And the soil itself must contain certain adequate nutrients for biofertilizer organisms to thrive and work. And these biofertilizers, they must be used before their expiration date. If other microorganisms, they happen to contaminate the carrier medium, or if the growers use the wrong strain, they are not at all effective. And they also lose their effectiveness if the soil is too hot or dry. Also, excessively acidic or alkaline soils, they hamper the successful growth of these beneficial microorganisms. Thank you.